Hi, my name is Cameron Beckett, and I'm going to be speaking today on social networking in the classroom. And I'm really excited to get to speak on this today. I'm actually going to be a new teacher starting in the fall here in Little Rock, teaching business and oral communications. But I have a background in business development, and so I use social media, social networking was a day-to-day part of my job. And so get to speak to that and try to glean what I've learned in the past towards the classroom is a really cool opportunity for me today. Now, just a quick lay of the land of what we're going to cover today. We're going to start with just a quick introduction to social networking and social media for education. I think everyone here has a general understanding of the big part that social media plays in our society, but just going to give you some background there. Then I'm going to jump into why you need to incorporate social networking as a key instructional tool, and I have some cool kind of themes to kind of build off of that. And then I would be remiss if we didn't talk a little bit about the rules of engagement of safely using social media. I know we all have hesitations of using that, especially with some of the recent trainings that we've completed and some of the nightmares we've heard of teachers getting caught up in social media with students and how we can kind of avoid those. And then throughout the entire presentation, I'll be sure and include some examples and resources for you to use. Just a quick introduction. Social networking is as simply defined as the use of websites and applications to interact with other users. And that, as we know, can be vastly open. You can go to any news site or any different location on Instagram, and you can pretty much access all of the comments, all the sub comments, all the likes. Some we wish we maybe wouldn't see. And then also on the other side, you can minutely detail and close those types of groups to where you could have a one-on-one conversation with somebody in Facebook or a very small interest group that's privately held, and you have to have an administrator request go out in order to be added to that. Some common examples we're all familiar with that can be used both in the classroom and socially: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, blogs. Maybe some others that you maybe wouldn't think of for education: TED-Ed, Google Classroom, Edmodo, YouTube, Asana. But as we know, the list goes on, right? Social media is a vast place. And in fact, about 42% of the world's population actually is currently using social media, and that's about 3.2 billion people. And of that, 91% of social media users access it from a mobile device. So the reason I share that is kind of as a disclaimer for this presentation. This isn't a step-by-step guide on how to incorporate social media in your classroom. This is just kind of laying a foundation, a base that you might be able to glean off of. I'm going to be teaching the high school level. It may be a little bit different for elementary school, especially with parents becoming involved a little more heavily there. And so I would encourage you to kind of take what I share, but also think of your own path. There's so many different platforms, so many users out there, and really it's going to be specific to your classroom and your age group to what makes sense to incorporate or to exclude. Now, something I kind of based my whole presentation on is from the University of Kentucky Center for the Enhancement of Learning and Teaching. And I'm going to get on kind of some of the themes that they present here in just a second. But one of the quotes on one of the articles I found from them that I really liked is kind of funny, but it's: social networking tools are just that, tools. Their spaces are more than just celebrity gossip and pictures of cats and other cute animals. They represent an opportunity to think of your learning space differently. And so the reason I share that with you is generally there seems to be kind of at this point a negative connotation by many administrators and teachers on what social media can play in the classroom. They see it as a distraction, which maybe is kind of warranted because in a lot of our minds, social media can be a huge distraction even to our own personal lives. But by rejecting social networking and social media, in my mind and kind of from what I've researched, it really misses a key learning opportunity. Because as we saw on the previous slide, social media is only becoming more and more prevalent in our society. More and more people are using its tools. And so our students, whether we like it or not, are going to be exposed at some point in time to social media. So if we continue to reject it and kind of treat it as this bad thing, students are going to use it in that way. They're going to kind of rebel and say, well, my teacher doesn't want me to use this. I'm going to go use it and use it in the way that we kind of think that we don't want our students to use it in. But on the flip side, if we can embrace it as educators and really teach students how to use it responsibly, which can be used, can be called digital citizenship, then not only are we incorporating fresh new content in our classrooms, but we're also teaching them to use it responsibly and having a hand in how they're going to continue using social media for the rest of their lives, which can be so beneficial for them as they continue to grow and use social media to their advantage. So again, University of Kentucky, I really like the way they broke out the four main concepts of how you can use or why social networking is great for the classroom. And they kind of build on each other, and there's some blurred lines between them, but they have some distinctions that I like to address. The first is sharing, collaboration, then exchange, and then it sparks creativity. So I'm going to jump into each one of these briefly and kind of get some examples based off of those. So social media can be incredibly efficient for sharing and administering resources to parents and students alike. And those resources can be shared on a very public basis through something like Twitter or privately through something like a WordPress blog site or Google Classroom. And those blogs and Google Classroom are really great for posting homework assignments, important documents. You can even go through and either using Facebook or Google Classroom post events like tests or big deadlines, field trips, things that parents need to be aware of as well as students, and maybe even have that synced to online calendar. So everybody's in the loop, and the mode of communication is just wide open, so everyone knows what's happening in the classroom. Something I'm going to be doing in my classroom also, and this is more on the public side, but is going to be posting relevant articles that tie into my classroom and using hashtags to kind of group those all together. So teaching business, I might go find a Wall Street Journal article that's very relevant to what we're speaking about the next day, have students read it, reflect on it, comment on it, interact with that on Twitter prior to class or after class. And then finally, pretty simple, is just recording lessons and posting them to YouTube, kind of like we're doing here today. How powerful is it that students that maybe have trouble with a concept might go to YouTube and watch a video of your exact lesson on the topic, so they're able to master that and use that towards their studying for maybe a test the next day or next week. So the next is going to be collaboration. This really feeds well from sharing. It's essentially to take all those resources that have been shared and then use social media to work together to complete an assignment or a project. And in my mind, this more accurately simulates a real-world experience. In my experience in the marketplace, very rarely would I just sit around, in a library or in a conference room and knock out a project with 5 or 6 members of a team. Usually, I was assigned some aspect of a project, sent home to work on it. But there are so many apps out there that allow you to continue to collaborate, communicate with each other in a very efficient way while doing that. So it allows you to kind of have that concept, but in a remote setting. What's great about these is also it kind of helps you as a teacher track different contributions from different members of the team. So you can kind of gauge who's maybe very involved in that, or maybe those that are a little less involved. Just a few examples, just grabbing a project management app like Asana, Evernote, maybe Google Docs, and that just allows multiple users, again, to access that project and work on it together. And then Slack actually is something I used at a past job, but I saw on our discussion boards and Blackboard, somebody had suggested using that in the classroom. I thought that was an awesome idea. Slack is an awesome instant messenger tool and also file sharing place that allows you to very simply search and collaborate with each other. Just open those lines of communications, and you might use those in tandem with an Evernote or a Google Doc. So just some modes of collaboration. Now, similar but a little different is going to be an exchange, right? So social media is social for a reason, right? It's supposed to generate conversation, generate dialogue around a particular subject. And what it does is it encourages learning from peers or experts is where it really comes into play in the classroom. And as long as we're doing it safely, it's something that students can learn. Not to say that I'm not qualified to teach business, but there are some people out here that have different perspectives, different areas of emphasis that would be much more suited to share with my students than just me rambling out of a textbook. And so just some examples of maybe how we would use that is to go post discussion questions for students to be able to comment on, like in a blog, much like we do in Blackboard, to kind of glean off of learning from other students. Maybe connect with other classrooms, parents, or different industry professionals to encourage that community. That's one of the videos I'm going to show you, but again, accessing people that maybe are a little more well versed in a particular topic to engage students and have them learn using something like Skype. And then finally, maybe using something like GroupMe to have all your students in to be able to poll them and message them. Again, obviously doing that in a safe way. I did want to show this quick video on Skype that I thought was very relevant to what we're discussing today.
It's important for us to remember that it does apply beyond the pages that are in front of us or beyond an essay that maybe only a teacher will see. So to have a professional come into our classroom using Skype, it's such a great application and really a motivator. Hi, Blake!
Hey, guys!
We're super excited to meet you. This is our class.
Hi, class!
Hey! We're a sophomore, junior English class at Lake Stevens High School in Washington State. It looks beautiful where you are.
We're in Los Angeles here at the Tom's headquarters in my office.
Would you mind telling us a little more about what brought you into the field of social action and social entrepreneurship? And then we have a few questions for you.
So sorry I had to cut that a little short for the sake of time, but really love what they did there in bringing in an industry professional to provide just fresh content and make it really relevant to the kids. And kind of continuing on, the last of the four elements of using social media in the classroom is it sparks creativity, and it really comes from gleaning from the collaboration, the sharing, the rich educational exchanges they're having, and really helping them feel empowered to kind of operate above just the norm of the day-to-day in a classroom. So a couple of examples that I really liked is having a student go and create a Pinterest board to document ideas prior to jumping into a project. So getting some others to kind of influence their decisions before they make their own. And then finally, using Instagram as just an alternative documentation tool, right? So how cool for a science experiment that covers something over time to see natural progression, either using a story or just videos and photos of that. What I really liked was having a student kind of emulate a historical figure for an entire semester and have a private Instagram account that's only accessible to others in the class and to teachers to be able to view, that student through the eyes of, or that historical character through the eyes of that student, which is kind of a cool idea. So, and the possibilities for that are endless when it comes to creative use of the social media. Those are just two that I really liked. So all this to be said, are students actively learning because of social media? Is it improving test scores? Are students performing better because of social media? And there's just not quite enough academic research that is pointing to data that shows that. However, there have been some research that show that social media generally, both formally and informally, can help students know where to request help or find resources on their own, a place to learn about technology, to seek social support, organize different group activities, and even validate their creative work as it contributes. And I look forward to seeing how social media continues to embed itself in that and become an integral part of our learning in the future. And the last thing I wanted to cover before jumping into just showing my reflection on the screen is general rules of engagement. And these are kind of no-brainers. I'm not going to go into each one of these in depth because you're smart and you are aware of just some general hazards of using social media. But generally, we all know separate personal and professional accounts. Parents must provide consent. Be a general example to your students. Ensure you're familiarizing yourself and doing your homework on the different privacy policies. as well as FERPA laws, and even just the settings within the different sites. And one that I just added here is if you're messaging a student, make sure that you have a colleague or an administrator also included in those conversations to make sure that there's no question that what you're doing is professional in nature. And at the end of the day, just have complete oversight over anything and never let students go off on the side and do things on their own within social media, because we know that could be detrimental to the educational setting. So thank you for your time, and I'll have my reflection and my bibliography and everything up in just one moment.